Hello, welcome to part 3 of our theory screencast. What I was saying at the end of the last one, where I was so rudely cut off by my time limit, was that now what we're going to do is we're going to take these three big overarching dialectics and we're going to break them down. We're going to look at the forces present, and then we're going to actually break them down into within relationship dialectics and then between the relationship and the community dialectics. Okay, so let's talk about these forces. Okay, now what Baxter and Montgomery do is they borrow from physics when talking about force, which is actually pretty cool. You've got centripetal and centrifugal force present between people whenever they are talking about or dealing with relationship stuff. So you've got centripetal force, the forces that pull people toward one another or toward the relationship. And if you're talking about the early stages of a romantic relationship, sometimes that force can be very intense. Sometimes this is the force that will pull you toward one another. And I don't know if people are on the phone like they were in my day, but this is the 4-hour phone conversation where for the last 90 minutes you just sort of sit there with each other and you just don't want to hang up the phone. That's centripetal force. Okay. Centrifugal force pushes us away from one another in the relationship, and both of these forces are present. One of the cool things about these two forces is that one being present means the other one is present. They create each other, right? If I put a rock on the end of a string and I swing that rock around on that string that's going in a circle, both forces are what create its movement. And so that idea is what is present in our relationships, is that we are pulled toward each other, but we are also pushed away. Now, they may not happen at the exact same time, but there is pull and there is push. This links back to the push me, pull you, right? Where this idea of we are drawn toward people and we are pushed away, and those two things happen together. Even the people who we love deeply, the people who we are deeply committed to romantically or in our friendship group, there are still things about that relationship and about that person that will push us away. Okay, so let's talk about the tension pairs. So on the slide prior, we hit the big overarching dialectics. So every relationship has these. Okay, integration, separation, stability, change, expression, privacy. And so what you're going to see now is these big overarching dialectics become present in the on the ground personally in the relationship. Okay, so let's talk about the tension pairs that happen within a relationship. These are personal within. So if you've got a romantic partner and you're talking about two people in a romantic relationship is what I meant to say. Interpersonal romantic relationship, you're going to see these on the ground. Okay, so autonomy, connection. This will mirror some of the things we just saw with integration, separation, right? So you've got autonomy, connection. Autonomy, connection says you have a need for personal space. That is your autonomy. You have a need for personal space while also having a need for connection with another human being. And you figuring out how that looks or how that works for you is going to be your individual experience. Okay, now what's interesting is this. Your attachment style will come to play here. All right. So what do you think the chances are of you getting into a romantic interpersonal relationship where you have the same understanding of autonomy and the same need for connection as your partner does? Probably not the same. Even if you share the same attachment style, it's probably not going to be the same. So I gotta tell you, when I realized my need for autonomy and my need for connection were probably just different than my romantic partners, it changed the way I understood their bids for connection in my relationships. Because it turns out I just had a higher need for autonomy. I would come in, needing autonomy and needing connection, still wanting connection, but valuing autonomy a little more. And then turns out some of my partners were just different than me. And so their bids for connection just felt overwhelming to me because I was looking for more autonomy. Okay? And so, but I need both, and so do you. You need autonomy, you need connection, and you need it in whatever your measure is. And your measure will change and shift over time. It will change and shift depending on what type of relationship you're looking at. But you need autonomy, you need connection. You also need novelty and predictability. So you have the need for newness, and you have a need for stability and routine. And some people are going to have, they're going to want more novelty. Some people are going to want more predictability. And this is where, can you already see how some of the arguments in relationships happen here? Where you've got, you're like, I need some space. And they're like, we haven't seen each other in 3 days. You know, if we go to the same restaurant again this week, I am going to have to lose my mind. Versus you still need that stability and that routine. You have to build those patterns of interaction over time so that you reduce uncertainty and you build self-disclosure and lots of relational closeness and intimacy, right? So we need newness, but we need stability and routine. And in what measure? Okay, I can say this: my spouse and I fit pretty well on the novelty predictability dialectic. Our differences in autonomy and connection were there, but novelty and predictability, we haven't had much trouble with that. Okay, you may be fine on autonomy and connection and have trouble with this. Okay, and then you have openness, closedness. How much do we share with each other? So for example, in a romantic relationship, it is a real thing. Do you disclose sexual history, and to what extent, and how many details, and stuff like that? I mean, how much is that going to be a part of the conversation? It's important to consider. How much do you share versus openness, closedness? My wife had a friend at one point. They just moved away, and they're just not as close anymore due to distance. But had a friend who was like, you know what? We are best friends, and we share everything. And my wife was actually like, we are best friends, but I am still not going to share everything with you. You know? So we have this idea of openness and closedness. And so these are the within a relationship tension pairs. And so what you can do is if you were to choose relational dialectics for your artifact paper, and it's a friendship or it's a family relationship or it's a romantic relationship, and you start to kind of see some of the things that are happening in the relationship, when you lay over that relationship of the lens of relational dialectics, you will probably be able to see, oh wow, they're having a conversation about autonomy and connection, or wow, they're arguing because of novelty and predictability, or they're angry at each other because they thought they knew something about them, but it turns out they didn't. And it was openness, closedness, and this really gives lots of great fodder for analysis in your pop culture artifact. You can also analyze the centripetal and centrifugal forces. You can take a look at the larger dialectics. This just explains so much of our relational existence and the ways that we kind of go back and forth and try to make sense of what it means to be connected to the people that we're connected to in our lives. You have a need for all of these, okay? These are the tension pairs that are personal and within. So then not only do these exist, you've got the three overarching ones, you've got the three within, and now you've got the three that exist between whatever the couple is, friendship or romantic relationship or family, and then the outside world, okay? So first of all, you've got seclusion, inclusion. This is going to look a little bit like autonomy, connection, but it's on the social level, okay? So initially, couples will need privacy to establish unique codes, and then they will have to come out as a couple, and then come out and be social, okay? So seclusion, inclusion. As a romantic couple, how secluded are you versus how included are you? Okay? Their couples have different understandings of how this should look. Friendships are this way. Friendships work this way. Family relationships work this way. And so how much seclusion versus how much inclusion? So depending on what your artifact is, would depend on whether you needed to do the within relationship or the social aspect of it, okay? You've also got conventionality and uniqueness. These mirror the within relationship tension pairs. So seclusion, inclusion mirrors autonomy, connection. Conventionality, uniqueness mirrors novelty, predictability, okay? So society has a stake in seeing relational patterns reproduced, yet intimacy requires uniqueness. You need both. Okay? You're going to need both. And so how conventional versus how unique is the relationship going to be? Every single relationship faces this dialectic. Okay? And so depending on the relationship, depends on conventionality and depends on how you define, I can't even talk. Depends on how you define conventionality and depends on how you define uniqueness. Okay, but every single relationship, and folks, I've had students ask, wait, does this apply to like same-sex relationships? Yes, all of this does. Every last bit of this is applicable to your relationships. Okay, so seclusion, inclusion, conventionality, uniqueness, and then you've got revelation, concealment. So you had openness, closedness in the within. So you and your friend or you and your romantic partner are going to deal with how much to share. And then as a couple, as a friendship, you're going to have to decide how much to share with the outside world. How much do we share? I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but I have been at dinners where one relational partner will share something about the couple that the other relational partner was not ready for the world to know yet. And it created some serious tension at the table, okay? So what do we tell others? Okay, and there are advantages of going public, but there are also risks to it, depending on what you're sharing. Okay, some couples who are romantically involved are really open about their sex life to other people. Other couples are really concealed about that. Other couples will be like, "Hey, we're trying to make a baby," or "Hey, we're trying to adopt." And other couples, you will never know until further down the line. And it depends on the couple, it depends on the context, it depends on where they're at and what they're doing. Okay, so folks, this is such good fodder for analysis in your pop culture artifact. Okay, it can be friends, it can be family, it can be romantic. As long as it's an interpersonal relationship, this is something that you can use to analyze the behavior that you're seeing present there in the artifact. Okay, you can talk about the overarching ones. Every relationship has those three overarching ones we talked about. Next, we dealt with the within relationship tension pairs. Then we've got the social between that's there. And folks, it's probably all of them all at the same time, but depending on the scene or the episode or the movie, you'll see certain things start to sort of flare up as the most obvious thing to analyze. So then, okay, part of the relational dialectics is these tensions exist and these are what make our relationships, okay? But then we have to deal with them, okay? And your book does not go into detail with all of this. I mean, all your book says is there's three dialectical tensions, and that's really it. There's so much more to it. And then we've got how we deal with them. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and stop right now, and then we will pick up how we actually deal with these dialectical tensions, because there are positive and negative and healthy and unhealthy and productive and unproductive ways that we deal with these dialectical tensions, because we have the tension, it is there, it's undisputable, indisputed, it's there. It's early, y'all. I don't know what that word is. It is there. It's verifiable by research that the tension is there. Okay? And so then, how do we deal with it? That is going to be very important for us to discuss, and I'll see you in the next screen.